I'm Troy Kirby with MLT News with a quick look at the 2021 Washington State legislative session. As the 2021 legislative session came to a close this weekend with ceremonies of Sine Die, legislators discussed the Blake decision, in which the state Supreme Court eliminated simple drug possession charges on February 21st for hundreds of pending cases.
Mr. Speaker, it's debates like this on the floor of the House. I'm just sorry that we're not there together and that we're spending yet another day in this virtual world. Mr. Speaker, it's debates like this that remind us our similarities, not our differences. It's debates like this where we hear stories I've shared many times, Mr. Speaker, about the challenges that my family has dealt with and the triumphs that we've also achieved. Mr. Speaker, this is tough policy. The courts, in my opinion, I don't think did us any favors to put us in this position today. But I always say that out of our most adverse situations come our greatest opportunities. And I do believe that there is an opportunity here, Mr. Speaker.
And this means that our brothers, our sisters, our neighbors are involved and invested in the solutions that we need. We know that the war on drugs is a failed policy. We know that it has a disproportionate impact on Black and Brown communities.
Our system that actually had tools where we could put somebody away at least for a little while because of possession, failed even then. And now, Mr. Speaker, you're taking more tools away. This legislature is. We're putting the cart before the horse. I don't want any criminal sanctions. I don't want that for people that are suffering. But Mr. Speaker, I want to save lives.
Mr. Speaker, I'm a suburban mom on the school board. And last August, while driving with my husband in my district, another car crossed the center line and hit us head on. He hit us head on because he was high. Mr. Speaker, you spent decades as a state trooper, and you've investigated more crash scenes than you can probably remember. And as you know, Mr. Speaker, the crash scene didn't have any skid marks. The other driver didn't touch his brakes, not once. The other driver didn't touch his brakes, Mr. Speaker, because he was high.
And I've gone to countless drug court graduations where people have said, if it wasn't for drug court, if it wasn't for that incarceration over my head, I would be high or I would be dead right now. But because of drug court and incarceration being held over my head, I now have my family back, I have my children back, I have my job back.
In her early 20s, she began a relationship with someone experiencing an addiction, and within a year, she was too. She wasn't a bad person. She was self-medicating to cope with a history of untreated trauma. For 4 years, she struggled and failed to overcome it on her own. It was after 2 of her childhood friends lost their lives and another went to prison that she finally summoned the strength to permanently abstain. She found a safe and stable home, and she began to heal because of the life-saving medication of Suboxone and countless hours of therapy. Within 2 years, she finished college, the first in her family. She entered a graduate program and started volunteering in her community. Not long after that, she bought her very first home, and she's now been clean for over 14 years. Many of these things wouldn't have been possible if she had been convicted of a felony. She wouldn't have qualified for the Pell Grant that helped finance her college education. She would have had trouble finding a decent job and a place to live. This young woman's story is unique simply because she was lucky. So many other stories turn out differently because for decades, we've tried a failed policy of punishment and fear instead of treatment and hope. I know this story because that young woman is now speaking to you on the floor of the House of Representatives.
Thank you for watching the Daily Legislative Report by MLT News, covering the 2021 legislative session.